He was adopted. He dropped out of college. He was fired from his own company. And yet, Steve Jobs became one of the most influential innovators in human history. But here's what most people don't know. Jobs once told a biographer that he regretted how he treated people. He cried about the daughter he initially denied was his. And in his final days, he revealed the one thing he wished he'd done differently. Stay with me, because this story will change how you think about success, failure, and what really matters in life. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 to two graduate students who gave him up for adoption. His biological mother insisted that his adoptive parents promise he would go to college. This abandonment became a defining psychological wound that shaped everything Jobs would create. His adoptive father, Paul Jobs, was a machinist who taught young Steve that even the hidden parts of a product should be perfect. When you're a carpenter making a beautiful chest of drawers, Paul told him, "You're not going to use a piece of plywood on the back, even though nobody's going to see it." This lesson about craftsmanship would become Jobs' obsession. Jobs grew up in Silicon Valley during its explosive growth. He was bright but rebellious, difficult but brilliant. In high school, he met Steve Wozniak, a technical genius who would become his partner in creating Apple. Their personalities couldn't have been more different. Wozniak was gentle, generous, and purely interested in engineering. Jobs was intense, demanding, and obsessed with changing the world. In 1976, working out of the Jobs family garage, Steve Jobs and Wozniak created the Apple I computer. But Jobs wasn't just interested in building a computer. He wanted to build a revolution. While other computer companies were selling to hobbyists, Jobs envisioned computers for everyone. The Apple II, released in 1977, became a massive success. Jobs was only 22 years old but already displayed the characteristics that would define him: an intense focus on design, an ability to see what consumers wanted before they knew it themselves, and a reality distortion field that made impossible deadlines seem achievable. But success brought out Jobs' darker traits. He could be cruel to employees, dismissing their work as shit in public. He denied paternity of his daughter Lisa, even though a DNA test proved he was a father. He created a binary world. You were either enlightened or an idiot. Your work was either genius or garbage. In 1980, Apple went public, making Jobs a multimillionaire at 25. But his greatest creation was still ahead. Jobs became obsessed with creating a computer that was not just functional, but beautiful. He visited Xerox PARC and saw the graphical user interface: windows, icons, mouse control. While others saw an interesting research project, Jobs saw the future. The Macintosh project became Jobs' consuming passion. He wanted every detail perfect: the fonts, the shape of the case, even the circuit board that no one would ever see. He pushed his team to exhaustion, telling them they were making history. And they were. When the Macintosh launched in 1984 with its iconic Super Bowl commercial, it changed computing forever. Jobs had proven that technology could be both powerful and accessible, functional and beautiful. But Jobs' management style was destroying Apple from within. He fought with CEO John Sculley, who he had personally recruited. The board had to choose between the visionary founder and the experienced executive. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the company he had founded. Most people would have been destroyed by such a public failure. Jobs was devastated, but he did something unexpected. He used it to grow. He founded Next Computer, pursuing his vision of the perfect computer without compromise. Next computers were beautiful but expensive, commercial failures that were nonetheless technological marvels. The operating system Jobs developed at Next would eventually become the foundation for all modern Apple products. Then Jobs bought a small computer graphics division from Lucasfilm for $10 million. He renamed it Pixar. For years, Pixar hemorrhaged money while trying to sell expensive computer hardware. But Jobs kept funding it, believing in the small team of animators led by John Lasseter. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated feature film. It was a massive success. When Pixar went public, Jobs' stake was worth more than his entire Apple fortune had ever been. The wilderness years transformed Jobs. He fell in love with Laureen Powell and married her. He became a father to 3 more children. He learned patience, strategy, and how to choose his battles. The cruel young genius was becoming a mature leader. By 1996, Apple was dying. The company had lost its way, releasing dozens of confusing products that nobody wanted. In a desperate move, Apple bought NeXT for $429 million, bringing Jobs back as an advisor. Within months, Jobs engineered a boardroom coup and became interim CEO. His first move shocked everyone. He made a deal with Microsoft, Apple's sworn enemy, getting a $150 million investment and a commitment to support Apple. Then Jobs did something radical. He killed products. Apple had been making 15 different computer models. Jobs slashed them to 4: a professional desktop, a professional laptop, a consumer desktop, and a consumer laptop. Simplicity became his weapon. The iMac launched in 1998, a translucent, colorful computer that looked like nothing else. Critics mocked it. Consumers loved it. Apple was saved. But Jobs was just getting started. Jobs realized that personal computers weren't becoming obsolete. They were becoming the hub of our digital lives. You'd have a camera, a music player, a phone, all connecting through your computer. First came iTunes, software that made it easy to manage music. Then in 2001, Jobs unveiled the iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was sleek, simple, intuitive. It made every other MP3 player look clunky. But the breakthrough was the iTunes Store in 2003. Jobs convinced record labels to sell individual songs for 99 cents. He changed the entire music industry overnight, proving that people would pay for music if you made it easy enough. Jobs' design philosophy was everywhere. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Every feature removed was as important as every feature added. The iPod had no on-off switch, no display of technical specifications. It just worked elegantly. In the early 2000s, everyone had a cell phone and a music player and a camera. Jobs asked a simple question: why can't one device do it all? The iPhone project was incredibly ambitious. Jobs wanted a large touchscreen with no physical keyboard, unheard of at the time. He wanted it thin, beautiful, and powerful. He wanted to reinvent the phone. The development was brutal. Jobs rejected design after design. He changed the screen at the last minute, insisting on glass instead of plastic. He forced multiple teams to compete on the same problems, letting the best solution win. On January 9th, 2007, Jobs took the stage in his signature black turtleneck and jeans. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone, he said. He unveiled a device that was an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator, all in one. The iPhone transformed everything. It created the smartphone industry, the app economy, and changed how humans interact with technology. It remains Apple's most important product. Jobs' perfectionism was legendary and often maddening. He once delayed the iPhone because he didn't like how the screen collected scratches. He insisted on redesigning the Apple Store layouts multiple times. He spent months choosing the right wood for the stairs in the Pixar building. This attention to detail extended to everything. Jobs didn't just approve products, he obsessed over them. The packaging had to be perfect because unboxing was part of the experience. The website had to be clean because it was an extension of the brand. But this perfectionism came with a cost. Jobs could be brutal to his employees. He had what people called a binary view. You were either brilliant or a bozo. Your work was either the best thing ever or complete shit. There was no middle ground. Yet people who worked for Jobs often said it was the best experience of their careers. He pushed them to do things they didn't think possible. He made them believe they could put a dent in the universe. Jobs created a reality distortion field. He could convince anyone of almost anything through sheer force of personality. Impossible deadlines became possible. Bad ideas became brilliant. Engineers would leave meetings committed to tasks they knew were impossible, and then somehow achieve them. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Doctors told him he had one of the rare forms that was treatable with surgery. They wanted to operate immediately. Jobs refused. For 9 months, he tried alternative treatments, special diets, acupuncture, herbal remedies, spiritual healers. He believed he could think differently about cancer the way he thought differently about technology. It was a catastrophic mistake. By the time Jobs agreed to surgery in 2004, the cancer had spread. The delay may have cost him years of life. Jobs survived the surgery but was never the same. He became thinner, frilier. Yet he continued working with obsessive intensity, creating some of Apple's greatest products, the iPhone, the iPad, the MacBook Air. He kept his illness private, insisting it was under control even as he grew visibly weaker. In 2009, he took a medical leave for a liver transplant. In 2011, he resigned as CEO, though he remained chairman of the board. Steve Jobs died on October 5, 2011, at age 56, surrounded by his family. His final words, looking at his sister and children and wife, were, "Oh, wow! Oh, wow! Oh, wow!" What did Jobs leave behind? Not just products, but a way of thinking. He proved that design matters as much as engineering. He showed that consumers don't know what they want until you show them. He demonstrated that you can't just satisfy customers. You have to delight them. Jobs reinvented 7 industries: personal computing, animated movies, music, phones, tablet computing, retail stores, and digital publishing. Few individuals in history have had such broad impact. But Jobs himself was deeply conflicted about his legacy. In his final conversations with Walter Isaacson, he expressed regret about how he treated people. He wished he'd been kinder, more present as a father during his children's early years. He cried when talking about his daughter Lisa, whom he'd initially rejected. He admitted that his focus on perfection in products had sometimes come at the expense of perfection in relationships. Understanding Steve Jobs means holding contradictions in your mind simultaneously. He was a Buddhist who believed in intuition and simplicity, yet he was ruthlessly competitive in business. He advocated for natural foods and alternative medicine, yet he created technology that changed how we eat, work, and heal. He was generous to some, giving millions to charity anonymously, yet he could be cruel to others, particularly those closest to him. He inspired fierce loyalty yet left behind many wounded relationships. Jobs believed in the intersection of technology and liberal arts. He quoted poets, studied calligraphy, and cared about the humanities as much as engineering. This integration of diverse disciplines was his secret weapon. He was not a technical genius like Wozniak. He wasn't a business genius like Gates. His genius was in understanding what mattered: the user experience, the design, the story. He conducted like a maestro, bringing together artists, engineers, and marketers to create symphonies of technology. What can we learn from Steve Jobs? First, focus is about saying no. Jobs cut Apple's product line from 350 products to 10. He said, "People think focus means saying yes to the thing you got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas." Second, the journey is a reward. Jobs didn't just care about finished products. He cared about the process. He believed that teams working together to create something beautiful was meaningful in itself. Third, stay hungry, stay foolish. This was Jobs' famous Stanford commencement address advice. Don't settle. Keep questioning. Keep pushing boundaries. Fourth, connect the dots looking backward. Jobs dropped out of Reed College, but sat in on a calligraphy class. Years later, that influenced the Mac's beautiful typography. You can't plan these connections. You can only trust that they'll make sense in retrospect. Fifth, love what you do. Jobs said, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do." His passion was infectious and drove his success. Jobs' approach to design revolutionized multiple industries. His principles were simple but profound. Simplicity, simple can be harder than complex, Jobs said. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean, to make it simple. But it's worth it in the end because once you get there, you can move mountains. The iPod had fewer buttons than any competitor. The iPhone removed the keyboard entirely. Every Apple store has massive empty space, the opposite of cluttered retail. User experience. Jobs didn't just want products that worked. He wanted products that were delightful. He obsessed over details that most manufacturers ignored. The sound a laptop makes when closing, how a phone feels in your pocket, the weight distribution of a tablet. While competitors assembled parts from different suppliers, Apple controlled everything: hardware, software, services, retail. This vertical integration allowed for seamless experiences, but required enormous investment and control. Materials and craftsmanship. Jobs studied materials obsessively. The aluminum unibody MacBook, the glass and steel iPhone, the seamless design where you couldn't see screws or gaps. These weren't accidents. They were the result of countless hours perfecting manufacturing techniques. Jobs' business insights were as revolutionary as his products. He understood that premium pricing wasn't about greed. It was about perceived value. Apple products cost more, but felt worth it. The profit margins funded research and retail experiences that competitors couldn't match. The Apple Store concept was mocked initially. Gateway had failed with retail stores. Why would Apple succeed? But Jobs didn't just sell computers. He created spaces where people could experience the brand. The Genius Bar provided support. The beautiful architecture made shopping feel aspirational. Jobs invented the one more thing moment in presentations, building anticipation and excitement. He made product launches into cultural events. People would camp overnight for iPhones not just because of features, but because of the experience. He also understood ecosystems. The iPod needed iTunes. The iPhone needed the App Store. The iPad needed iBooks. Each product made the others more valuable, locking customers into Apple's world. The Walter Isaacson biography doesn't shy away from Jobs' failures and flaws. Jobs parked in handicapped spaces. He drove without license plates to avoid being identified. He denied stock options to early Apple employees who'd taken risks for the company, while granting millions to himself. His denial of his daughter Lisa wasn't just initial reluctance. It was years of rejection even after paternity was proven. He was often absent from his children's lives, prioritizing work over family. Jobs could reduce grown adults to tears with his criticism. He publicly shamed employees whose work didn't meet his standards. Former colleagues described walking on eggshells, never knowing which Jobs would appear, the inspiring visionary or the cruel tyrant. Some defend this as necessary for excellence. Others call it abuse. The truth is probably both. Jobs achieved extraordinary things, but the human cost was real. His treatment of cancer revealed another flaw: arrogance. He believed his intuition about alternative medicine would triumph over medical science. This hubris may have shortened his life significantly. As Jobs' health declined, he worked with renewed urgency. He wanted to ensure Apple would thrive without him. He mentored Tim Cook, his eventual successor, teaching him about product vision and brand identity. He designed a new Apple headquarters, a massive circular building that embodied his design principles. Even though he wouldn't live to see it completed, Jobs gave Isaacson unprecedented access, knowing the biography might be the last word on his life. He didn't ask for approval over the content. He wanted the truth told, flaws and all. In his final days, Jobs reflected on life beyond work. He talked about the beauty of his wife and children. He expressed hope that his kids would understand that he loved them, even when work consumed him. He also thought about death and what might come after. Jobs, who had studied Buddhism and Eastern philosophy, wasn't sure what he believed, but he hoped consciousness continued in some form. His sister Mona Simpson delivered a eulogy that revealed Jobs' final evolution. Steve's final words were monosyllables, repeated 3 times. Before embarking, he'd looked at his sister Patty, then for a long time at his children, then at his life's partner, Lorene, and then over their shoulders past them. Steve's final words were, "Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow." To understand Jobs' impact, imagine life before his innovations. Music. We bought entire albums on CDs. Portable music meant carrying a Walkman and maybe 20 songs. Jobs didn't invent digital music, but iTunes and the iPod made it accessible and elegant. Phones. Mobile phones were about calling people. They had tiny screens, physical keyboards, and limited internet. The iPhone made the phone a portal to everything. Computing. Personal computers were beige boxes in offices and dens. Jobs made them beautiful objects you'd want in your living room, and then made tablets so good you didn't need a traditional computer at all. Retail. Tech was sold in cluttered stores by unknowledgeable staff. Apple stores became the highest revenue retailers per square foot in the world. Animation. Movies were hand-drawn or live-action. Pixar proved computer animation could tell emotional, sophisticated stories that rivaled any medium. But Jobs' deeper impact was philosophical. He proved that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. Computers should be intuitive, not requiring manuals. Phones should disappear into your life, not dominate it with complexity. Perhaps Jobs' most mysterious quality was his reality distortion field, his ability to convince people that the impossible was achievable. Bud Tribble, an early Apple engineer, first coined the term after watching Jobs convince the team they could finish the Mac in half the time experts said was possible. It was a reference to Star Trek, where aliens create alternate realities through sheer mental force. How did it work? Jobs combined several techniques. He genuinely believed what he was saying in the moment. He didn't see it as deception. He saw alternative realities where challenges didn't exist. He used intensity and charisma to overwhelm rational objections. His stare, his focus, his passion made you want to believe. He offered binary choices. You're either with a vision or against it. There was no middle ground, which forced people to pick a side. He mixed truth with exaggeration so skillfully that separating them became impossible. An engineer would explain why something was hard, and Jobs would explain why it was actually simple, and somehow both would be true. The field had limits. It didn't work on people who didn't want to be convinced or those who had strong contrary evidence. It worked best on people who wanted to believe, who wanted to be part of something great. Jobs' relationship with family was complicated and evolved over his life. His biological parents gave him up for adoption, creating a wound he never fully healed. He found his biological sister, novelist Mona Simpson, as an adult and developed a close relationship with her. But he barely knew his biological father and chose not to pursue a relationship with his daughter Lisa, born when he was 23. Jobs initially denied paternity despite a DNA test. He named the computer Lisa, but claimed it stood for Local Integrated Software Architecture. Only years later did he acknowledge this was dishonest. Eventually, Jobs reconciled with Lisa, paying for her education at Harvard and developing a genuine, if complicated, relationship. His marriage to Laureen Powell in 1991 provided stability. By all accounts, she grounded him, challenged him, and created a family life that balanced his work obsession. They had 3 children together, Reed, Aaron, and Eve. Jobs was present in ways his father Paul had been with him, taking family trips, having dinners together, being involved in his children's lives. Yet work always competed for his attention. His kids grew up with a famous, demanding, often absent father who nevertheless loved them deeply. So who was Steve Jobs really? He was a perfectionist who created beautiful products but damaged relationships. A Buddhist who practiced ruthless capitalism. A college dropout who transformed education technology. An adopted child who abandoned his own daughter. A visionary who delayed his own medical treatment. Jobs himself recognized these contradictions. Near the end of his life, he told Isaacson, "I've been very lucky. I've had a very lucky career, a very lucky life. I've done all that I can do." But he also expressed regrets. He wished he'd been kinder to more people. He wished he'd been more present as a father in his children's early years. He wondered if his driven nature had cost him experiences and relationships that mattered more than he realized. What makes Jobs' story compelling isn't perfection. It's the struggle between brilliance and flaws, between change in the world and being changed by it. His legacy isn't just products. It's a way of thinking that combines technology with humanities, engineering with art, function with beauty. It's the belief that a small team of talented people can change the world. It's the idea that the journey matters as much as the destination. Jobs pushed himself and everyone around him toward an impossible standard. The cost was real, in relationships, in health, in happiness. But the achievement was also real, in innovation, in beauty, and impact. As you're watching this on an iPhone or a device inspired by iPhone, through technologies that Jobs pioneered, his influence surrounds you. Every touchscreen, every app store, every beautiful tech product owes something to his vision. The question Jobs leaves us with isn't, how do I become Steve Jobs? It's, what will I create? What will I stand for? What mark will I leave? Steve Jobs didn't just think different. He made us all think different. And that might be his greatest product of all. Your time is limited. So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Steve Jobs, Stanford Commencement Address, 2005. So here's the question I want to leave you with today. If you knew you only had one more year to live, like Steve Jobs did in his final days, what would you create? What would you finally start? What would you stop wasting time on? Jobs said that remembering he was going to die was the most important tool he ever encountered to help him make big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, just falls away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. So what's truly important to you? Think about it. Write it down. And most importantly, act on it. If this video made you think differently about success, failure, creativity, or life itself, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. We dive deep into the lives of extraordinary people. The geniuses, the rebels, the misfits, the ones who change the world. Because their stories aren't just history, they're blueprints for what's possible. Drop a comment below. Which Steve Jobs lesson hit you the hardest? Was it his perfectionism? His reality distortion field? His regrets about family? I read every single comment, and your insights often become the inspiration for future videos. And if you want to support this channel, hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe they're struggling with a project. Maybe they're afraid to start something new. Maybe they just need a reminder that the crazy ones really can change the world. Remember, stay hungry, stay foolish, and never stop creating. I'll see you in the next one.